Hi, Sonny here, and welcome to English class. Today, we're going to be studying The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Make sure you're paying attention because I expect your essays to be on my desk by the end of this video. Okay, jokes aside, today I'm going to be looking at the song Samsa, its symbolism, how it relates to Night Chord and its related event, as well as taking a look at its 2D and 3D MV. This video is probably going to be quite long, so maybe grab an apple or something to snack on while you watch. Samsa is a song by Tenyoha, and it was commissioned for the Canada Focus event Immiscible Discord, which was first released on the 21st of March 2023. Before this, Tenyoha only had one of his other songs in the game, Villain, which received a Sekai version by Mizuki and Mafuyu, as well as a 3D MV. Tenyoha is a big fan of literature and even an author himself. He has named Edogawa Rampo and Ray Bradbury as some of his favourite authors. Rampo shouldn't really come as a surprise if you've seen his Twitter handle. He has been writing and creating music ever since he was in middle school, and when ideas come to him, he's sometimes unsure of whether that phrase will eventually become a lyric or a passage in a novel. He has said that he also just enjoys writing lyrics with no meaning as well, though.
もちろん全く無意味な歌詞も好きなんでたまにやるんですけど、だからみんながそれを真面目にこう深読みされると実はこれ意味ありませんっていう単なる音として聞いてくださいっていうフレーズももちろんあるんですけど。
Tenyoha's songs are usually littered with references to books or authors, and Samsa is no different, which the title alone gives away that the motif that we're working with here is very obviously Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis. And yes, Tenyoha has confirmed this himself.
元となった小説の変身という小説の主人公のグレゴール・ザムザという男は虫になって自分の部屋から出なくなるんですけど、もう同じようにブースからも出れない。
Metamorphosis is a novella that was first published in 1915 and is one of Kafka's most well-known works. It tells the story of Gregor Samsa, a young man who one day wakes up to find that he has transformed into a monstrous insect. I read the novella myself for this video and even put tabs in my book to feel like a true intellectual. The meaning of the story can be interpreted in many different ways, but the core themes at play are change and how we deal with it, societal pressures, and isolation. I'm going to read you a passage from the research paper, Metamorphosis, a Psychological Exploration of Identity and Isolation, because they sum it up way better than I ever could. Look, I was only half joking when I called this video English class. As he retreats into the solitude of his room, Gregor is forced to confront the disconnect between his inner and outer worlds, between who he believes himself to be and how he is perceived by others. This process of introspection, while painful, ultimately allows Gregor to gain a deeper understanding of his true desires and aspirations. Yet Gregor's journey is not one of triumph, but rather a tragic exploration of the human capacity for cruelty and indifference. As his family grows increasingly resentful of his presence, Gregor is denied even the most basic forms of love and acceptance. His isolation, both physical and emotional, becomes a prison from which there is no escape. In the end, he succumbs not to his insect nature, but to the weight of a lifetime of unfulfilled dreams and unrealized potential. Through Gregor's story, Kafka lays bare the corrosive effects of a society that values conformity over individuality, productivity over humanity. In a world that demands that we all play our assigned roles, Gregor's metamorphosis becomes a symbol of the price we pay for failing to fit in, for daring to be different. It is a cautionary tale, but also a call to arms, a reminder that true freedom lies not in the acceptance of others, but in the courage to embrace our own unique identities, no matter how monstrous they may appear. I think it should already be pretty clear how some of these themes relate to Mafuyu and Night Chord's situation as a whole. Well, let's take a look at Gregor and Mafuyu's situation side by side, shall we? Gregor Samsa is the main provider for his family. He has a well-paying job and has never missed a day of work. Mafuyu is an only child and has the hopes of her parents on her shoulders. She is diligent and a star student who probably very rarely misses a day of school, if at all, as we've seen her still attend school even while she's clearly sick. When Gregor first started earning lots of money, his family would be delighted every time he came home and placed the cash on the table. However, as the initial excitement wore off and it became the norm, Gregor no longer felt a sense of achievement or warmth from doing so. Mafuyu no longer feels a sense of accomplishment when getting a good result on a test. She only fears getting a bad result, as it would upset her mother. Gregor transforms into a monstrous insect. Mafuyu's perfect persona begins to show cracks, and she begins to have desires of her own that don't align with her mother's. She is undergoing a transformation into what her mother would consider a bad child. And in this sense, it is an ugly and unwanted transformation. So in Mafuyu's case, she doesn't actually become a bug, but hey, wait a minute. Bug is a song by Kairiki Bear, which was commissioned for the Mafuyu focus event, What Lies Beyond Guiding a Lost Child, which was first released on the 10th of June 2022, around 9 months prior to Immiscible Discord. In this event, Mafuyu disobeys her mother for the first time in many years. Not only once, but twice. The first is when her mother cleans her room and finds her synthesizer, which should have already been long thrown out with the trash. However, Mafuyu stopped it from being thrown away and hid this fact from her mother. Mafuyu tries to explain her interest in music to her mother, but she quickly shuts the idea down and Mafuyu reverts to her obedient self out of fear. This incident shakes Mafuyu up so much that it causes the timid and childlike Len to spawn in her Sekai. The second time Mafuyu disobeys her mother is when she goes to Phoenix Wonderland with the rest of Nightcod instead of attending her mock exam. Despite knowing that it will upset her mother and despite knowing that she should be attending the exam because that's what a good child would do, after having a panic attack in the middle of the street, Mafuyu's instincts take her to the amusement park instead of the exam, to the comfort of her friends instead of her mother's wishes. The song Bug is about a girl who is programmed to be perfect. The bug in the context of the song is her own emotions, which she shouldn't have. The song basically represents the whirlwind of emotions within Mafuyu and her uncertainty towards these new desires that have unknowingly been bubbling up within her heart. And of course, as the song says, the paranoia of it all. What's interesting is that Kairiki Bear has said that this song was originally going to be titled Administrator, which means Kairiki at least didn't intentionally set this song up to link to Samsa. However, someone over at Colourful Palette noticed this link, because what outfit is Kaido wearing in the 3D MV of Samsa? Boom! It's Bug. Okay, back to the Gregor comparison. Gregor's first reaction to waking up and seeing that he had become an insect was to close his eyes again and hope it was all just a dream. In her Immiscible Discord 2-star card story, Mafuyu wills herself to sleep, not wanting to think about anything that is happening. After becoming an insect, Gregor no longer enjoys the taste of normal, fresh foods. He instead prefers the taste of older, rotten meals. Mafuyu lost her sense of taste due to the immense amount of pressure she's been under to be the perfect child. Gregor is locked away in his room. Mafuyu spends most of her time figuratively locked away in her room. Gregor begins losing his sense of self. Whilst playing the role of a perfect child, Mafuyu slowly grew to no longer understand who she really is or what it is that she really wants to do. Gregor's sister and mother begin to remove the unneeded furniture from his room. Seeing his belongings being taken away hurts Gregor, and he rushes over to cover a painting that's hanging on the wall, desperate to keep at least one thing that he can call his own. Once Mafuyu's mother begins to suspect her daughter is hiding something from her, she starts to invade Mafuyu's privacy. She cleans Mafuyu's room without telling her, confiscates Mafuyu's synthesizer and later throws it out, and then in later events she spills a drink on Mafuyu's laptop, rendering it unusable, and then finally attempts to confiscate Mafuyu's smartphone, which at this point is Mafuyu's last connection to her friends and her Sekai. Mafuyu begs her mother not to take it, but it ends up falling into the fish tank during their struggle. Gregor's mother faints at the sight of him, and his father arrives home to the commotion. In a fit of anger, Gregor's father throws apples at Gregor to make him return to his room. One of these apples is thrown particularly hard and lodges itself painfully into Gregor's back. Mafuyu's relationship with apples is quite different from Gregor's. To Mafuyu, apples remind her of when her mother fed them to her when she was sick as a child. They are a symbol of warmth and nostalgia and represent her mother's love. However, Mafuyu is also heavily associated with Snow White, and even played her in her primary school play, which gives the double meaning of her mother's love being akin to poison. And it is suffocating Mafuyu, keeping her as the sweet, naive, and perfect Snow White that her mother wishes for. Apple imagery can also be associated with doctors, teachers, or the forbidden fruit from Adam and Eve. Amidst his neglect, I actually don't know how to say her name. Grete? Amidst his neglect, it's Grete's violin playing that causes Gregor to peek his head out of the door. He is absorbed in his sister's beautiful playing, and he wishes he could have sent her to the conservatory to study violin, as he had been planning to do so before he became a bug. Kanada's music makes Mafuyu's heart feel warm and helps ground her from her troubles. Whenever Mafuyu doesn't know what to do, or she is on the verge of a panic attack, she listens to Kanada's music. Throughout the story, Gregor's family is selfish and only think about themselves, and how Gregor's transformation has negatively affected them and their lives, not Gregor's. Not once do they properly try to communicate with Gregor, or even attempt to find different solutions to their new situation. Mafuyu's mother always insists that she is thinking of Mafuyu and looking out for her future. However, as Kanade says, Mafuyu's mother isn't thinking about Mafuyu's feelings at all. She has only convinced herself that she is. In What Lies Beyond Guiding a Lost Child, the bug event, We see that when Mafuyu got lost at the amusement park as a child, when her mother found her again, Mafuyu's mother made it all about herself. Her first reaction wasn't to cry in relief and comfort her distressed child, but instead was to scold Mafuyu and make her feel guilty for not listening. This very scene appears to be where Mafuyu's complex to be a perfect child was first born as well. As Mafuyu looks back on this memory, she remembers how her mother dragged her out of the amusement park and comments on how cold her mother's hand felt. Gregor, who had not been eating out of protest for some time now, is locked back into his room and ultimately succumbs to his starvation. Even in his final moments, and despite the awful treatment that he has endured, Gregor still thinks of his family fondly as he passes away. Mafuyu also still believes that what her mother is saying is right and for her own good. She still loves her parents because they're her parents, and she wants to think that they are right and that her mother is only doing these things because she loves her. Mafuyu has expressed that she wants to disappear before, and it's not very subtle what this phrase is supposed to imply. So if Mafuyu never found the friends and support system that she has now, she very well may have suffered a similar fate to Gregor, as sad as that is. So, as you can see, there are a lot of similarities between Gregor and Mafuyu's situations, even if the details here are completely different. I'm also just going to quickly mention here that all of this is my own interpretation, so if you have a different theory or different thoughts to anything I present in this video, feel free to drop it in the comments, because I'd love to read what you guys think. Now, that's the book analysis out of the way. We can move on to talking about... Wait, what's this comment here say? Moon over the... Wait, hold up, there's another story? Though not as prominent as Metamorphosis, Samsa does also appear to have some subtle references to a different story throughout the lyrics, and that story is The Moon Over the Mountain by Nakajima Atsushi. If you're a fan of Bungo Stray Dogs, you're probably already familiar with this story. The Moon Over the Mountain was first published in 1942 and is one of Nakajima's most well-known works. It tells the story of Li Zhang, who, in the pursuit of becoming a famous poet, lost his mind and miraculously transformed into a tiger. So yes, there are also some similarities with the stories here, though personally I'd much rather turn into a tiger than an insect. And yes, I read the short story for this video too. The Moon Over the Mountain is about a man named Li Zhang, who was smart and had prospects of becoming a government official. But because he could never let go of his dream of becoming a famous poet, he continued trying, only to lose his mind and become a tiger. Li Zhang is discovered by his old friend Yuan Khan, I'm sorry for my pronunciation of these names, I'm probably saying them wrong, in the mountains, and Li Zhang tells him that he will not be able to retain his human consciousness for much longer, and that soon he will truly be nothing more than a beast. Before they part forever, Yuan Khan records all of Li Zhang's poems, and Li Zhang composes one last poem for him to write down. I actually really like this poem, so I'm just going to put it on the screen. You can pause to read it if you want. Li Zhang then states that his reason for becoming a tiger was his own self-important sense of shame. Li Zhang laments that he wasted what little talent he had and that he is now filled with nothing but regret, since now his dream truly will never come true, because he's a tiger. Li Zhang's final request is for Yuan Khan to tell his wife and children that he has died, and to take pity on them, and make sure that they don't just die of cold and hunger by the roadside. Li Zhang then says, "Were I a human in the least, I would have begged this favor before anything else. A man who is more concerned about his wretched poetry than about his wife and children deserves the fate of becoming a beast." Now, the more astute students in the class may have already picked up on how this story relates to Mafuyu's situation, but let's break it down. Mafuyu's mother wants Mafuyu to become a doctor, and believes that to be Mafuyu's dream. She sees being a doctor as a respectable profession, and one that will guarantee Mafuyu has a secure future. On the flip side, Mafuyu's mother doesn't really strike me as someone that sees jobs in the creative field as respectable. Whenever Mafuyu brings up wanting to pursue music, her mother always refers to it as a great hobby. She even straight up judges Kanade for saying that she focuses more on music rather than her studies.
それなら、よいさきさんは大学受験をする気はないのかしら。
今はまだ考えられていません。私にとっては受験よりも音楽が大事なので。
そう。自分のやりたいことがちゃんとあるなんて素敵ね。
Mafuyu's mother repeats constantly that she doesn't want Mafuyu to regret her choices, and that she is looking out for her future. She doesn't want Mafuyu to end up becoming a Li Zhang, someone who, instead of getting a respectable job, pursues an artistic dream and ends up becoming a beast filled with nothing but regret. Okay, now we can move on to talking about the actual event itself, Immiscible Discord.
あなたにどう言われても真冬のそばから離れない。
As I said earlier, it released in March 2023. Despite the fact I've just been talking about Mafuyu for the past however many minutes, this event is indeed a Kanade-focused event. By the way, I am aware that this event is on the English server too by now. Like, I'm sure the official translation is fine, but I prefer just translating it myself because then you'll get to see how I read it and we'll all be on the same page. The event story starts with Mafuyu's mother snooping around on her daughter's laptop again, except this time she actually manages to find Mafuyu's lyric files and the Nightcord program itself. And what does she do? She opens it up and starts reading the chat logs. Later that day, Kanade receives a random friend request on Nightcord from none other than Mafuyu's mother.
Mafuyu no okaasan.
Okay, I just need to stress how crazy this behavior is from Mafu Mama. Like, she made a whole ass account just to send Kanade a friend request and claim that she's Mafuyu's mother. Like, if I was Kanade, I would block this person. Anyways, Kanade accepts the friend request and begins chatting with Mafuyu's mother in full-on Keigo, which is very funny. Mafuyu's mother requests that Kanade suspend the activities of their music circle and allow Mafuyu to focus on her studies. She also states that Mafuyu has a different dream and that she needs to be focusing on that instead of making music. This gives Kanade pause, as she has never heard Mafuyu mention having a dream before.
Mafuyu no yume tte nan nan daro? Ichido mo kiita koto nai kedo.
Kanade replies that as long as Mafuyu wants to keep making music with her, then Kanade will do so. Like, already Kanade is very much answering with Mafuyu's interests in mind. Like, it's not Kanade saying, I want to make music with her, so I'm going to keep doing it. It's if Mafuyu wants to. Like, there's already that difference between her and Mafuyu's mother. Then Mafuyu's mother replies with this bombshell of a message. This message, of course, shocks Kanade, but she still stands her ground. Then, much to her surprise, Mafuyu's mother asks her to meet up in person. As you do. Internet safety 101, Kanade. Don't just meet up with random people on the internet. Meanwhile, Mafuyu arrives back home and notices that her laptop is slightly out of place. She asks her mother if she used it, and even gathers up the courage to tell her mother that she doesn't want her using her laptop anymore. However, Mafuyu's mother subtly implies that she found the files Mafuyu has been trying to hide, and she tells Mafuyu to stop studying at night, and that she can't be letting other things distract her right now. After her mother leaves, Mafuyu is at a loss as to what she should do. She wants to keep making songs with Nightcord, and she wants to keep making music, but her mother has become a roadblock for what she wants to do. Mafuyu had always had faith that her mother had her best interests in mind, but now Mafuyu questions if that really is the case. And the fact she's questioning it at all is a pretty big deal.
私のことを思ってくれてるんだよね。
This exchange causes Kaito to spawn in the Sekai, and it's pretty obvious from his introduction CG what emotion he is supposed to embody. Kaito was called to the Sekai to move the plot forwards, both figuratively and literally. He does not intend to coddle Mafuyu as all the other Vocaloids and her friends have. He is here to tell her the blunt truth and give her the much needed push forwards that she needs in order to take control of her situation and change it. He is harsh about it, yes, but that is the point. Kanade discusses the fact Mafuyu's mother contacted her with Mizuki and Enna, who are both understandably shocked by this development. Mizuki and Enna immediately offer to join Kanade, but she refuses, saying that she wants to meet with Mafuyu's mother alone, since depending on how the exchange goes, Kanade may not be able to see Mafuyu again, in person. So if Mafuyu's mother knew what all of their faces looked like, Mafuyu truly would be isolated from all of them. The next day, Mizuki and Enna are chatting in a family restaurant, then they notice Mafuyu walking by outside. They invite her in and they hang out together. Mizuki and Enna wanting to do whatever it is they can for her, even if it's just chatting and taking her mind off things. When Mafuyu eventually has to leave because of her curfew, Enna reminds her that Mafuyu shouldn't be afraid to stand up for herself.
ねえ、Mafuyu。何？ニーゴのこと。お母さんに知られたのは大変だと思うけど、嫌なことはちゃんと嫌だって言いなさいよ。あんたのこと守れるのはあんたしかいないんだから。
Later that night, Mafuyu tries to speak her mind once more.
夜、勉強できなくなるのは、嫌なの。
Telling her mother that she'd like to keep studying at night because she needs to get good grades in order to be accepted into the medical university that she's aiming for. But Mafuyu's mother sees right through this lie. Mafuyu's mother denies Mafuyu once more and insists that she needs to sleep more, which her father cluelessly agrees with, and then Mafuyu can't find the courage to speak up any further. Feeling hopeless, Mafuyu goes to the Sekai to catch her breath, only to meet the newly spawned resident. Cut to Kanade, who is unsure of whether or not her thinking is in the right, so she decides to go and speak with Miku, only to stumble upon a very heated conversation between Mafuyu and Kaito.
だってもう、どうしようもないじゃない。 私は嫌って言ったの。音楽をやりたいっていうことも伝えたの。でもそれでも聞いてもらえなかった。
このままこれ以上何もできないと思うなら思いを殺していけばいい。それができないなら今みたいに噛みつけ。
噛みつけってお母さんにそんなことできるわけ。
From overhearing this argument, Kanade learns that Mafuyu has actually told her mother that she wants to make music, but it didn't change anything. This emboldens Kanade, and she resolves herself to speak with Mafuyu's mother for Mafuyu's sake. Kanade meets up with Mafuyu's mother, and her first impression is that she seems like a nicer person than Kanade was expecting.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
This is also the first time that we get to see what Mafuyu's mother looks like, and we finally get to hear her voice.
ユキの母です。よろしくね、ヨイサキさん。
I'm not actually sure why she isn't voiced in the earlier chapters. Like, I guess they wanted us to meet her for the first time alongside Kanade, but honestly I find it kind of strange that such an important character like Mafuyu's mother wasn't just voiced and had a sprite from the beginning. Mafuyu's mother invites Kanade into a fancy-looking cafe and is friendly until the topic of entrance exams comes up. And then the mood immediately shifts, and Kanade feels a cold chill run down her spine.
空気が変わった。
Mafuyu's mother reiterates that Mafuyu's dream is to become a doctor, but Kanade isn't buying it.
なんだろう、この違和感。
Kanade says that she knows that exams are important, but she thinks that music is necessary for Mafuyu right now as well, and that she heard that Mafuyu told her mother that she wants to do music. And much to Kanade's surprise, Mafuyu's mother agrees.
もちろんよ。
Except not in the way she wanted.
でもね、やっぱり音楽サークルはやめてほしいと思ってるの。
Mafuyu's mother wants Mafuyu to quit the music circle, but Kanade refuses this right away, repeating that she thinks creating music together as Night Court is necessary for Mafuyu right now. But Mafuyu's mother disagrees and bluntly tells Kanade that she doesn't believe music or working together in a circle is necessary in Mafuyu's life.
だから真冬のことを思うのなら、あの子にサークルをやめるよう勧めてもらえないかしら。あなたの口から聞いたなら、きっとあの子も納得してくれるはずよ。
And this is where Kanade truly starts to realize that something is off about Mafuyu's mother's way of thinking.
違う。やっぱり違う。真冬のお母さんが真冬のことを、真冬の夢のことをすごく考えてるのはわかる。でもそうじゃない。違うんだ。何かが。
Thinking that she's won, Mafuyu's mother wishes Kanade well and thanks her for being friends with Mafuyu until now. But Kanade isn't done yet and confides in Mafuyu's mother that Mafuyu once said she wants to disappear.
真冬は前に消えたいって言ってた時があったんです。
Then she goes on to practically pour her heart out in an attempt to get across just how important night court and music are to Mafuyu. Now, you would think hearing that your child wanted to disappear would be something you would take very seriously, right? This should have been a massive wake-up call to Mafuyu's mother, right? Well...
あの子、そんな風に思っていたのね。
そうなんです。だから。
そうよね。あの子は真面目ですごくいい子だから。きっと学校で嫌なことがあったり、テストでいい点が取れなかったりして落ち込んでしまっていたのね。
違う。
ありがとう、よいさきさん。そんなあの子の支えになってくれて、次からは私もあの子の話をよく聞いてみるようにするわ。
違う。
She's wrong, just as Kanade said. And despite how nothing she has said has gotten through, Kanade continues to press Mafuyu's mother and get her feelings clearly across.
本当にやりたいことを聞いてあげてください。そうすればきっと真冬にとってサークルの活動が必要なんだって分かってもらえると思います。それにどうして今真冬が苦しんでいるのかも。
But Mafuyu's mother still doesn't listen to her.
そうよね。ちゃんと真冬の気持ちを聞かないとダメよね。ちゃんと話し合ってサークルで音楽をやるよりも医者になる方が真冬のために一番いいってことを改めて理解してもらわないと。 ちゃんと話し合ったらきっと真冬の苦しい気持ちも消えるはずだものね。ちゃんと話し合ったら。
And this is the point where Kanade realizes just how pointless this conversation really is.
この人は真冬のことを本当は考えてない。考えてるって思い込んでるだけだ。
Kanade recalls a memory from when she was very young and how different her own mother's way of thinking was.
お母さんのためじゃなくて、奏が本当にやりたいことをしていいのよ。奏がお父さんみたいな曲を作れるようになったら、すごく素敵なことだとお母さんも思うわ。でも、奏自身が幸せに過ごしてくれれば、お母さんはそれが一番幸せなのよ。
And then, Kanade speaks her mind.
すみません。それはやっぱり違うと思います。
あら、何が違うの？
あなたは真冬のことを本当に考えているわけじゃなくて、真冬の気持ちを抑え込んでるように見えるから。
あら、心外ね。どうしてそう思われてしまうのかしら。真冬はね、私にとって何よりも大切な子なの。小さい頃からとても優しくて真面目ないい子で、私はあの子を世界で一番幸せにしたいと思っているのよ。誤解されてしまっているのは悲しいけれど、あの子のためを考えているというのは分かってほしいの。だって私は真冬の親だもの。
Even Mafuyu's mother pulling the parent card doesn't deter Kanade. And I just need to let this next scene play out in its entirety because it's so good.
このままじゃダメだ。このままだと真冬はこの人に壊される。自分の思いを殺してお母さんの願いを叶えようとして、そしたら真冬は今の気持ちをどう表現すればいいのかわからない。私はあなたが真冬のことを心配して音楽をやめさせようとしてるんだってここに来るまでは思ってた。でもそうじゃなかった。どれだけあなたの言葉をちゃんと聞いても、真冬の母親だからって考えても、私はあなたのことを信じられない。だから今決めました。
何よ？
私はあなたにどう言われても真冬のそばから離れない。
そう。残念ね。真冬のことを本当に大切に思ってくれているのなら分かってくれると思っていたけど、そうじゃないみたいね。
And thus, the bad blood between Kanade and Mafuyu's mother is born. Mafuyu's mother suggests they stop here and asks Kanade to keep their chat a secret from Mafuyu. Mafuyu's mother hits her with the sayonara, and of course, can't help herself in saying something unnecessary before they part ways.
ああ、それと老婆心だけれど、よいさきさんも自分の将来について後悔しないようにちゃんと考えた方がいいわよ。
お母さん、もうお母さん、もうそういうこと言わなくていいの。もう私から言うよ。お母さん、
胸が苦しい。
私も苦しい。
And I'm just going to let this last part play out again because it's important.
ずっとあの冷たさの中で生きてきたんだ。助けたい。どうにかして真冬を助けたい。けど私に何ができるんだろう。あの人の考えは絶対に変わらない。でも真冬はきっとあの人が正しいって信じてる。信じたがってる。真冬のお母さんだから。だけど このままじゃ、真冬は。今の私にできるのは、真冬がいつ戻ってきてもいいように曲を作り続けること。
And that's where the event story ends. But I also just want to quickly touch on Chapter 2 of Kanade's 4-star card. This chapter takes place directly after the end of the event story and shows Kanade back at home. She's feeling down because she wasn't able to solve anything by talking to Mafuyu's mother, and she also comes to realize just how oppressive Mafuyu's home life must be, and why she was so freaked out by dolls when they visited that exhibit, like, eons ago. Kanade makes herself some tea and is warmed by it, and once again resolves herself that she needs to stay by Mafuyu's side.
こんな暖かさを真冬にもあげられたらいいな。やっぱり私は真冬のそばにいたい。いないと真冬を救うために。
And this right here is the main difference to Gregor Samsa's story. Unlike Gregor, who didn't have anyone that he was close with apart from his family, Mafuyu has friends that are willing to fight for her and care deeply about her well-being. Mafuyu's story isn't one that needs to end in tragedy, and instead she escapes. If it wasn't obvious already, I really adore this event story because I think it showcases Kanade's strength and absolute dedication to her friends really well. Mafuyu's mother probably saw this quiet, 5'0" girl and thought her job was going to be easy. But despite how much she pressures and tries to manipulate Kanade's thinking, Kanade doesn't back down. Throughout their entire conversation, Kanade doesn't waver from what she believes, and basically ends their exchange with a declaration of war. And while she doesn't outwardly show it, because Mrs. Asahina over here is pretty good at putting on a fake smile herself, Mafuyu's mother is clearly annoyed by the fact she couldn't move Kanade how she wanted, like a little pawn on her chessboard. I also like how Kanade's expression is similar to Kaito's here, because she's doing exactly what he told Mafuyu to do. Bite back. Okay, now let's take a look at the cards for this event. This card set has two main motifs, fringed irises and moths. The fringed iris, or shaga in Japanese, is also known as the butterfly flower. Wow, that seems relevant. In flower language, they have a few different meanings, such as lots of friends, accept me, determination, and defiance, because they are capable of blooming even while in the shade. Not only are these irises prominent in all of the cards, but they are also in the song jacket and mentioned in one of Samsa's lyrics, despite being poisoned by the fringed iris. Fringed irises are indeed poisonous, so I wouldn't recommend eating one, and I think that their poisonous nature is what they're supposed to represent here. Notice how every card in this set is photo-negative except for Mafuyu, and how Nightcord are shown with mean or cheeky expressions. Well, that starts to make a lot more sense when you look at this card set as being from Mafuyu's mother's perspective. The photo-negative colour palette and the irises littered throughout the cards show that the image has been distorted, and that this is how Mafuyu's mother sees Nightcord's influence on her daughter. Poison. She even explicitly says this later in the Farewell My Mask event when she tries to confiscate Mafuyu's phone. She considers Kanade to be a rude girl who's refusing to let Mafuyu go, because she refused to listen to Mafuyu's mother's request to have Mafuyu quit their music circle. She sees Enna as an artist who's only interested in scribbling all over her textbooks instead of actually focusing on her studies. And finally, she sees Mizuki as a sweet talker who's trying to lure Mafuyu away. Candy lines the walls behind her as she beckons Mafuyu into the store, as if Mafuyu's mother doesn't believe that Mafuyu joined Nightcord out of her own free will, but instead was enticed into it by her friends. Mizuki's outfit also has elements that resemble a spider, like the belts around her waist and the literal spider webs on her gloves. Instead of beautiful butterflies, Mafuyu's mother sees Nightcord as moths. Despite being very similar insects, moths are usually dull in colour and not considered to be as pretty as butterflies. And Mafuyu's mother doesn't want Mafuyu to undergo this transformation into an ugly moth. She wants her to be a beautiful butterfly. Moths are also commonly associated with death, so I find it cool that Kanade's outfit also looks as though she's dressed for a funeral. If we remove the Mafumama tinted glasses though, and look at these cards in the context of the Nightcord that we know, then these cards suddenly aren't as negative as they may look. Kanade has a defensive stance and is protecting the little purple butterfly in the terrarium that she's holding. This butterfly is supposed to represent Mafuyu, and Kanade is protecting it from the fate of becoming pinned and hung up on the wall behind her, protecting her from becoming nothing but a perfect and preserved specimen without any freedom. As the card name suggests, the irises on Kanade's card likely represent determination, as well as her defiance to stand up against Mafuyu's mother. Enna is the complete opposite of Mafuyu. Despite her father pushing back against her desire to become an artist, Enna still pursued her dream and is determined to see it through. Because of this, Enna is always the first to tell Mafuyu that she should stand up for herself and not let her mother decide everything for her. Mizuki isn't trying to lure Mafuyu away, but instead trying to give her an escape route and tell Mafuyu that sometimes it's okay to just run away.
逃げることが必要な時もあるって僕は思う。だからもう無理だって思ったら逃げていいって僕は思うんだ。誰でもない。真冬自身のために。
And in the event Farewell My Mask, we see that this is ultimately what Mafuyu does. Just like butterflies, moths also symbolize transformation. They're nocturnal and fly towards the light. Nightcord are also nocturnal, and from this line in Samsa, they are the light, the hope that Mafuyu is flying towards. As for Kaito's card, his is pretty straightforward. I mean, just look at the card name. I like how it looks as if he's emerging from the ground, and his expression is so good. His irises are also completely photonegative, maybe because he's in the Sekai and not the real world. And finally, there's Mafuyu's card. Her being a 2-star isn't the only thing that sets her apart from the other cards. Her outfit is also distinctly different. Not only is this because Mafuyu is unsure of what she should do and is feeling powerless, but this is also how Mafuyu's mother sees her. An innocent Snow White that's being distracted and lured away by the evil group of girls who just like making music together. Mafuyu's outfit still includes the iris and moth imagery though, and despite the irises in her hair being small, they are still a sign that she is slowly starting to rebel against her mother. I also wanted to mention this Reddit post by user Magical Mage Himiko, who wrote up this interesting analysis of Samsa, and their main question is, if this is based on Metamorphosis, then who is Grete? Like, who is Gregor's sister? Because Gregor's sister plays a pretty important role in the story and also undergoes her own metamorphosis. Magical Mage Himiko suggests that instead of someone actually representing Grete, their point is that they believe Gregor and Grete are both Mafuyu. She doesn't want Mafuyu to go down Gregor's path and turn into an ugly moth. She wants her to go down Grete's path and be a beautiful butterfly, which I think is a really interesting interpretation, and I kind of agree with it. Like, you cooked. And now, with all of that context out of the way, we can finally talk about the song, Samsa. This was Tenioha's comment after the event trailer first dropped. Nightcord at 25 is a great name, isn't it? It sounds like it would be the first or final line in a hard-boiled novel. It possesses a strange charm that makes you want to say it out loud. After I thought I was going to lose to such a wonderful name and gave it my all, I ended up creating a truly enchanting song. I am gifting it to you. Please treasure it. When asked what aspect of the song came to Tenioha first after finding out he'd be making a song for this event, he explained that after deciding on Samsa for the theme, he built the song around that 3-syllable name. There was also a scrapped version with a completely different chorus, which I would be really interested in hearing.
サビが一番難航したので、はい、全然違うバージョンが家にデモとして残ってるんですけど。
全部聞きたい。
Now, before I get into the song itself, I just have to shout out these 4 people whose lyric breakdowns really helped me get a better understanding of the song. Each of their full posts will be linked in the description. Now, I'm only going to look at the Miku 2D MV briefly, but there are some details in the MV that are really cool that I'd like to look at. This MV is made by Orihara, who you may know because they do a lot of official artworks for Ado, and they've also done some other MVs for Tenioha. Firstly, I'd like to bring attention to the Samsa logo that's shown at the beginning of the song here. This logo was designed by Tenioha himself, so we can assume that each and every detail in it was very much intentional. The typeset on this logo is extremely stylized, and the characters Zamu-za have been configured in a way that resembles the kanji for yume, which means dream. And the logo has literally been set out on a plate to eat, directly referencing the lyric, "This isn't a joke, don't eat my dream." I'm just going to read out a comment that I found on the video here because I really like the idea that they came up with about this line. The line, "Don't eat my dream," makes me think of how Proseka's Mafuyu-san had her dream of wanting to become a nurse painted over with becoming a doctor. I also love how since the font of Zamuza at the start of the song can be read as dream, this lyric can also be interpreted as "don't erase this song." The logo also has cute little insect legs at the bottom, as well as some sections on the right side that are a brighter shade of pink compared to the rest. This part towards the bottom kind of resembles the number 1 and could be referencing the light is pointing towards 1 AM. But I think these highlighted parts also kind of resemble the slashes in the Nightcord logo. Next, there's the pinned butterfly theming that's reminiscent of Kanade's card art. These butterflies are purple too. During the bridge, we see pretty butterflies appear, and then more gross, undesirable insects appear, reinforcing that the goal is for this girl to turn into a beautiful butterfly. Okay, now let's look at the Proseka 2D MV. This MV was released on the 13th of August 2024, so I guess waiting this long to make this video paid off. It is illustrated by Komuno, and the movie itself is made by Maruichi from Fei Studio and Muniku from .mp. The MV opens with a clock ticking its way towards 1 o'clock, and the moment it hits, the whole screen changes to blue or purple, and a little butterfly or moth appears at the top of the screen. We also already have some fringed iris imagery. Enna's first line here includes a German word, which is likely a reference to the fact Metamorphosis was originally written in German. As for what this lyric means, I agree with the interpretation that it's referring to how Night Court assigned themselves their online handles. And Enna specifically probably got this line because of her beef with her last name. I like how the screen distorts as Mafuyu says her line here, and what looks to be a centipede is crawling by in the bottom of the screen. They're so mean for giving Mizuki this line, as we are aware that Mizuki has been bullied for their appearance before. And then finally, we get Kanade saying the line about apples being thrown, which of course is a direct reference to Metamorphosis. However, because of Mafuyu's relationship with apples, this line can be interpreted very differently. If we look at it from Mafuyu's perspective, it would be, "Don't throw your love at me," meaning either "Don't throw apples at me to keep me acting as your perfect child," or "Don't throw away the fond memories that I've associated with you." And then we have the logo for this MV, which is very different from Tenioha's design. This typeset, instead of resembling Yume, resembles a cute little moth. The title is also romanized as Samsa here. This mirror line is likely a reference to Snow White and the magic mirror, and Kaito tells Mafuyu from beyond the mirror that if things go well, it'll yield a profit. He's urging Mafuyu to talk it out with her mother and maybe come to a compromise. But as Mizuki says here, using sweet words and a smile aren't cutting it, and Kaito says if Mafuyu were to run now, she'd be nothing more than a beast. And I think Kaito's line here is supposed to be from Mafuyu's mother, because this line is likely a reference to the moon over the mountain, since the word beast, kemono, doesn't exactly invoke insect imagery, and Mafuyu's mother doesn't want her running off to become a beast. This is also directly followed up by Kanade's line, which again is reminiscent of Li Zhang's final poem. I like how a moon appears above her here, and then Enna asks what finger she should hold up to this nightmare. And knowing Enna, she probably wouldn't hesitate to hold up her middle finger. We then get Kaito standing in front of the clock as it ticks away again. Now the phrase "zuki zuki" is a bit of a pain to translate, pun intended, because there isn't really a good English equivalent to the sound of your heart beating with like a sudden sharp pain. The closest is probably throbbing, but I find that word to be a bit clunky. It's just one of those cases where the song works better in its original language. I also like how Kaito looks as though he's patiently waiting here. He's holding the apple that's supposed to represent Mafuyu and simply waiting. And then as Kanade says change, and he utters the last of the Zukis, Kaito opens his eyes, as if he's finally been called to the Sekai because Mafuyu needs him. Then the chorus hits, and we see irises blooming from each of Night Court's eyes, while Mafuyu is seen in literal chains. Not very subtle with the imagery there. Another translator's note here, but the phrase tamashi karagara is a play on the phrase inochi karagara, which means to have a near-death escape. Inochi means life, whilst tamashi means soul. So Tenioha has added the nuance that their very soul is holding on for dear life. This next lyric is also interesting, since Tenioha has added the reading wrangler on top of the phrase angry person. The use of kurao here also gives like a more animalistic and desperate vibe, like they're enduring and swallowing the pain in order to live. However, even after devouring the pain, their hearts are still beating painfully, and Mizuki tells Samsa to drag that gaudy tail behind him, or her in this case, since we're talking about Mafuyu. And again, insects don't have tails, I don't think. Is there an insect with a tail? So this is likely another Moon Over the Mountain reference. I think it's also pretty purposeful that they've given Mizuki all the lines that are to do with running away and accepting your new transformation. And Kaito also sings this line with her. And then Kanade tells Samsa not to give up on reality. I love the red hues that appear during this part 2 to represent Kanade's character color. Then we get the visual of this little Mafuyu apple ascending towards the light, escaping from the clutches of a spider's thread. There's also more taxidermy butterfly imagery. This lyric was apparently written when Tenioha was only 15 years old, and it was repurposed from another song because he said that the fact he wrote it when he was 15 makes it more authentic. Mizuki's line is pretty straightforward, and then Kanade's likely refers to how Mafuyu's mother just nodded along to everything she said, without actually taking any of it to heart. The same applies to when Mafuyu tried to tell her what she actually wants to do. And of course, since Mafuyu needs to play the perfect child, she can't properly have an argument with her mother either. Then we have Kaito in front of the clock again, and Mafuyu appears, actually expressing that she wants to change. But the words quickly change to her lamenting that she can't. We have the lyrics I mentioned earlier, Don't Eat My Dream, and I like how it's both Enna and Mafuyu that cry out this line together, because both of them have experienced their own dreams being belittled. We can see that the illustrations have changed and everyone is now sprouting wings from their backs, and it looks really cool. Enna, Mizuki and Mafuyu are looking more desperate and reaching their hands forwards, while Kaito looks contemplative and Kanade looks determined, her eye glowing with purpose. And she's holding the apple like it's a palm of power. Mizuki has yet another line telling Mafuyu to fly away, and then Enna's advice is more aggressive, telling her to just kick away anything she's unhappy with. Then we get Mafuyu and Kanade on this cool tarot card looking layout. I think Kanade saying she can't run away here is reminiscent of how in the event she was determined to speak with Mafuyu's mother and say what she can. Because like, if she were to run away from her and not even try to talk to her, then nothing really would have changed. Now in this chorus, we get the lyric, "It's as if you've taken a bite out of the apple," which again could tie into Kaito telling her to bite back. If the apple represents her mother's love, then she would quite literally be biting back at her mother. It all comes back to Kamitsuku, okay? Everything leads to Kaito saying Kamitsuku. It could also be referencing the forbidden fruit from Adam and Eve, symbolizing that Mafuyu's given in and taken a bite out of the apple. Like, she doesn't care about the consequences anymore. We get this really cool visual of Kanade's silhouette with the moth wings behind her, and she says in the softest, sweetest voice that even if you've lost all hope, you're still here. You're still alive. It could also have the double meaning of Kanade saying that she and the rest of Night Court are right here beside Mafuyu as well. And then Mafuyu says the fringed iris line I mentioned earlier. Whether Mafuyu is poisoned by her mother's influence or, in her mother's eyes, poisoned by her friends, Mafuyu is still here and able to take control of her situation. Enna then reassures her that the light is pointing towards 1 o'clock, towards Night Court. the clock literally opens. The clock hands literally open and show the number 25, and Mizuki confirms that now is the time to drag that tail. Now is the time to accept what you've become and live. So please don't say that you've given up on reality, Samsa. We see the apple ascending, and this time it reaches the top of the screen. And then we see the completed form of the logo from the beginning. Meaning that after reaching the light, Mafuyu and the rest of Night Court completed their transformation, and it even incorporates Tenioha's version of Mu with the spiral. The last thing that we're going to be looking at is the 3D MV. We open with Kanade staring directly at the camera, and we can see these little glitch effects on the screen, implying that we're watching a video or this is taking place in a digital world, whether that's the internet or the Sekai. Kanade does this cool move with her hand, and then boom, Kaito's suddenly there. The rage has been unleashed. The white background dissolves into cubes, and it looks very Nier Automata. I find this staging choice for this MV kind of interesting, because it's very different compared to the last two MVs we've looked at. There's no irises, no butterflies or moths. Instead, it's stark white with piles of old televisions on the sides. Like they're about to reach out for the truth and enter the TV world or something. As the mirror whispers to Mafuyu, she reaches out her hand towards Kaito, and she looks upset once he answers her. We can also see that Kanade notices this behind her, and she has a concerned expression on her face. Even as Mizuki says her line, Kanade is still walking by. Then Kaito says his line about becoming a beast, and they all throw their hands up like they don't want to hear it. The televisions glow red and various symbols appear on them. Ah, there we go, there's our iris imagery. Kaito does his interpretive dance behind each of the Night Club members, representing the way their hearts are beating uncomfortably. As he passes Mafuyu, she looks serious and reaches a hand forwards. Ena turns away from him, and Mizuki looks away from him entirely. Kanade is the only one that reacts to his presence and moves. She says change as she reaches out towards the rest of her friends, desperate to help them. When she says this, even the TVs quite literally change behind her. The chorus hits and Kanade reaches forwards as everyone experiences a heart attack around her. The TVs turn to static as all of Night Court reach out but miss one another, trying to escape from the pain of the Zuki. And for a brief moment here, Kaito actually looks vulnerable, which is kind of crazy. See guys, he does care deep down. We can fix him. The lights go dark as spotlights fall on Kanade and Mafuyu, but they're separated, still unable to reach one another as they can only communicate through the internet. The TVs turn blue and Ena says her line about the light, and she even reaches up towards it. Mizuki then looks at the camera with a solemn expression, telling us now's the time to go, now's the time to walk. And then as Kanade tells Samsa not to give up on reality, she reaches out towards Mafuyu once more, but she still doesn't take her hand, not yet, even though Mafuyu clearly wants to as she reaches out towards her as well. The background dissolves once again and they do their last little bit of choreo, and Mizuki and Ena can be seen with sad expressions on their faces, likely frustrated that they can't help Mafuyu in some way like in the event story. Then we get the reveal that, whoa, we've been watching this all on a computer monitor, which shuts off the moment they utter their final Zuki. Now, this is probably supposed to represent Mafuyu's hope being night court and the group of friends that she found through the internet, but it turning off might be implying that her mother pulled the plug, cutting her off from her hope. Though if Mafuyu's the one watching the monitor, then that means she's watching herself, but whatever. It's also fun to imagine that Mafu Mama found this file on the computer, watched it, and then immediately shut the PC down because it pissed her off so much. While the official upload of the 3D MV is only the game version of the song, I have seen the full choreography on the third concert Blu-ray and it is so good. I unfortunately can't show any footage because I don't want Colourful Palette to smite me, but I just want to mention a couple parts. I have this official screenshot though. They can't get mad at me for an official screenshot, right? Firstly, the staging is different yet again, this time with the screens behind them displaying not only the white background from the 3D MV, but also apples that glitch with mathematical equations with every zuki. Like, I guess we're referencing Isaac Newton now. The Samsa iceberg and the bottom tier is Isaac Newton. We also have plenty of butterfly imagery, including taxidermy ones, and we also see a mirror breaking every time the chorus hits. Another cool thing is the dance move they do during the other Sasa Sasa Samuza parts, where they put their hands in front of themselves like this to resemble butterfly wings. And that's all of the MVs. I like that despite sharing similar theming and imagery, they're all still distinct from one another. So in conclusion, Samsa is a everybody lives, nobody dies AU fanfic of The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. What I wonder though is how much the writing team actually leaned into the Metamorphosis references once they knew Tenyoha was using it for the theme of the song. From the Sekai Station episodes I listened to, during the production of the event, they presented like the framework of the event to Tenyoha before he made the song, and they were in discussions throughout production. Maybe once he told them, oh, I'm basing the song on this, the writing team were like, I don't know, it's just really interesting how many elements just come together and work. Like Mafuyu has like 3 main motifs going for her. She has the marionette aspect, she has the apple thing, now she has the Samsa thing. It's like, how deeply did they actually think about this? Because sure, people could be finding links that weren't initially intended, because that happens with theory crafting, but a lot of these seem intentional. So yeah, I think I have said everything that I want to say. At least that's what I would have said. But a funny thing happened while I was working on this video. Canada's most recent Focus event dropped, and a lot of elements about it seemed kind of familiar. The outfits especially. And I was just gonna like mention it at the end here, like, haha, they made Samsa too. But no, there's a lot going on with that event too, and its symbolism and all that. So that's gonna be a separate video because like, look at the runtime. If you made it this far, thank you. So stick around if you're interested in that. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a lot of work. But yeah, let me know your Samsa theories in the comments, and goodbye. I was just checking something and I stumbled across this page. I was like, oh, Samsa's probably on that. And it is there. But like whoever added this section to the page put this theory that I've never heard before about the song also being about how Canada thinks people view her. I've literally never seen this interpretation before. If you're the person who wrote this, please elaborate. Like, what does this mean?